All right, so you got a hand for us?
Yep, we're playing 1-3 and we're at Rivers Philly.
All right, so 1-3. 1-3 at Rivers Philly. And Rivers Philly, I just went to Philadelphia a couple months ago, but didn't get a chance to go to Rivers. Obviously, I went to Parks, but pretty good, pretty good scene in the Philadelphia area for poker, that's for sure. What's the like buy and cap game and stuff here?
Yeah, this is a 500 cap game,
Okay.
but we're actually 1,000 effective in this hand.
All right, so 1K effective. Okay. Yep.
Yep, and pre-flop we got a hijack open to 20
Okay.
and middle position calls, button calls, and I'm in the big blind with King Jack of clubs.
So hero in big blind with king of clubs, jack of clubs, hijack to 20. Just a straight 20, no straddle or anything like that?
Yeah, that's been pretty normal. This is a pretty splashy game. A lot of money on the table. So, yeah, the normal open has been 20 here. So,
Okay. I mean, that's a big open. I mean,
yep.
obviously that's definitely a big open. I mean, this is a hand where you could squeeze here, but I would say that it's probably pretty close in the sense that I think a lot of players at this level might not be all that experienced, possibly go into like a three-way pot, very, very bloated, 3 or 4 ways in a three-bet pot here. It comes from somewhat late position. I mean, you could go maybe 100 to 120. I think I probably would here with King Jack of clubs, maybe call with like King 10 of clubs. I mean, it's really kind of that close here because really, you said hijack to 20. You said, I don't know why I put MP, but you said cutoff calls. Is that right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cutoff and then button. So those are sort of two like dead flat callers here, which really shouldn't be that strong. So I think with the overlay here, I would be three betting more often than not.
Yeah, I would definitely normally squeeze here. But this hand in particular, the hijack and the middle position were really giving money away. And I kind of wanted to keep them in. But at the same time, Button's a solid player who I kind of want to drive out. So kind of in between, but definitely plays better as a squeeze, in my opinion.
I mean, if the button's a solid player, he should have a lot of three bets there with a dead call in between. But so did you decide to call or what?
I did just call.
All right, so hero calls. And by the way, this is a great example of how when you take a look at sort of live hands, you're like, oh my God, like I was 1,000 effective at 1-3. I lost 300 big blinds. Not really. I mean, it is that way, but when you're dealing with like a 7x open, like you'll see it live play and then it goes call, call. I mean, if the caller made a legitimate three bet here to like 100, which is like 5x, and then you got two people to call, the pot's 300 right then and there. You're already at 100 big blinds. So, you know what I'm saying? So it can get bloated up pretty quickly. So it looks like the pot is $80 here as we go to the flop. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And flop comes 9 of hearts, 8 of clubs, 5 of hearts.
9 of hearts, 8 of clubs, 5 of hearts. Okay.
And it checks around.
All right. So check, check, check. So by the way, here too, also notice. Well, why don't you tell us the turn card, and then I'm going to say what I would say. What's the turn here?
Turn 7 of clubs.
All right. So turn 7 of clubs. You pick up a club draw. What I was going to say here, it's even more applicable with what came on the turn, is noticing the position of the people that have checked with the pre-flop raiser, in this case, both after the pre-flop raiser. Why is that important? Because if you get a turn card that is not an overcard to top pair in that particular situation, then normally people are less likely to have top pair. This is the hijack opening. He's the pre-flop raiser and two people checking behind him on the flop. Different than if it went limp, limp, button raises, you call, call, and everyone just naturally checks to the button on the flop where you don't really know what the people have in front of the button. They're just naturally checking to the button, right? Now, the only thing I would say about this is that this turn card is different, right? Yes, maybe no one has a 9 here, but everybody's getting a free card, so somebody could sneak in here, with a 6, but still, even given all that, you probably have a profitable bet here. I mean, I think that the best example would be like if the board had come out like 10 deuce 3 or 9 deuce 3, everybody checked, and then the turn's a 6. You almost have a profitable bet with any two cards there in that spot coming from up front after the pre-flop raiser checks behind, after two people check behind the pre-flop raiser. Here, I mean, you definitely have enough equity to bet, and I think it gets through here a lot. You picked up clubs. It's 9 of hearts, 8 of clubs, 5 of hearts, turns to 7 of clubs. If you've got a gutter to a 10 and a club draw, it doesn't seem like there's, again, like I said, there's a whole lot of people that are interested in the pot. So I think it's a decent spot to bet here. Now the question is, what kind of sizing would you use? Is there a larger sizing that might get somebody to fold out, like a 2-pair hand, something like that? For example, let's say the hijack here has 7-8 suited and check the flop, and you bet 60. Is the hijack continuing there to the $60 bet with 2 people behind him with middle 2 on a one-liner, or is he not? I'm just kind of thinking out loud here,
Yeah, this guy probably is.
Okay. So what did you do here?
I bet 60.
So you bet 60. By the way, someone said check raise. The issue that I have here with check raising, though, is that I think that when somebody bets here, they're probably going to be somewhat polar when they bet on a one-liner to a straight, polar being a straight or some sort of bluff. So all of those hands that you want the folds from, like the middle 2s and stuff like that, are not betting. They're going to check it through, so you don't get that opportunity. And then you're up against a straight, or you're up against, you're up against a bluff some of the time. But that's the issue with check raising this turn card. But okay, so hero bets 60.
Yep, and the hijack throws out a $100 chip and says raise. So the dealer makes them raise
Classic.
to 120.
So he min clicks it. The pre-flop raiser.
Yep.
Min clicks to 100, and then do the guys behind fold?
Cutoff folds and button calls, which is surprising.
Oh, cutoff folds. Let me ask you this question. What would you have done if everybody folded?
I kind of like a 3-bet in this spot, but I know against most villains, but I know this hijack probably doesn't have a raise fold button, so I would probably just see another card because I know I'm going to get paid if
It seems really bizarre, though. Like, what hand would min click here by accident and then min click to 120? I mean, obviously the nuts are Jack 10, right? I mean, I guess he could have a 6, right? Ace 6 or something, something like that, and pocket 6s. And you're never going to get him to fold that. It's definitely bizarre because, again, it kind of makes me trend back to what I just said about why I don't like check raising. That if a raise, even if it's a min click, is somewhat polar, then you're not really going to get the fold that you want by bet 3-betting, right? He's not going to raise fold a 6, right?
Right.
So,
no way.
Yeah. So he min clicks to 120. The button calls. Now, what can the button be calling with here? The button could have a 6 here too. I don't think the button would just maybe flat call with the nuts, like if it even got checked through, like with a Jack 10 type of holding. Once in a while, you see somebody have like pocket 7s, probably not the pre-flop raiser. You would probably just call, but the button could possibly show up with pocket 7s. I'm not giving him sets on the flop because they would probably bet off on the flop on such a textured board. And then, of course, you have to be cognizant that someone could have a higher club draw than you. Someone could also have a lower club draw than you too. But that's why I think that the button could he have some 10x types of holdings here, that like an ace 10, something like that. It's, that's another draw that's out there. But I mean, I think he could have a 6, he could have a draw, something like that. But I would probably call here.
Yep, and that's what I did.
So hero calls. And we go 120 times 3, so 360 is a 440 here in the pot, right?
Yep.
All right.
And the river comes 6 of clubs.
6 of clubs. So the board is 9 of hearts, 8 of clubs, 5 of hearts. It gets checked through. Again, hero has king of clubs, jack of clubs. The turn is the 7 of clubs. Hero picks up the king high flush draw and a gutter to a jack. He bets the pre-flop raiser, min clicks it, and the button cold calls, and the hero calls. Now the river is the 6 of clubs, which puts out a one-liner here to a 10, but you make your backdoor flush. And what I would say here is that I certainly do not think that checking here would be the right play. And the reason why I say that is, like I said, you have to have a reason to check the river here. And I don't think it's in this spot inducing a bluff with this weird turn action. So when you are ahead here, it gets checked through a lot. And you might say, well, if he's got a lower flush, he's going to bet. Yeah, sure. But he's also going to call a bet as well. And then, you have a situation where if something crazy happens where you bet and maybe somebody wakes up with a raise, depending on what kind of size you bet here, you could even consider bet folding. As crazy as that sounds, there's actually a couple of straight flush draws out here too. If I'm looking at this correctly, it's 8 of clubs, 7 of clubs, 6 of clubs on the board. You have king, jack of clubs, so you're losing to 9, 10 of clubs if that's ever there, or somehow like a 4, 5 of clubs type of holding. There's also 9, 5 of clubs, but I'm not going to stick that one in there. But I would do a lot of betting here when I make it, and I'm very cognizant of the button. I probably don't want to get raised by the button, but that doesn't mean that you don't bet.
Yeah, and I definitely planned on leading out here. But then I look over the hijack and I see him basically getting ready to bet 200. And then I was thinking, this guy's not going to bet fold, so I can just check raise and get more value out of him.
You were going to check raise the hijack?
Because he just didn't seem to have a fold button. And I was pretty sure that he just had a straight. So I thought I can get the most value out of him by check raising.
You mean thought he had like a 10 or something that he was like min clicking the turn with?
Yeah, that's what it seemed like.
I mean, okay, it's just risky. That's all I'm going to say. It's risky. You feel whenever, when you try to get tricky with it and then it gets checked through, you feel awful. But okay, so you check.
Yep, I checked and hijack bets 200.
All right, into 440.
Yep, and then the button makes it 710.
Which is basically putting you all in, right?
Yeah, I think I would have like 100 left or something like that.
Oh, well, this is a really strange one here because, so the hero checks, the hijack bets 220. Would you say 200? Oh, no, 200. 200 and a 440, and then the button raises to 710. So it looks like 640 plus 700 is what? Plus 710 is what? 1150? Or excuse me, 1350. So it's 1350, 710 for you to call, right? That's the pot odds here. Now, the weird thing is, because you can absolutely get yourself into a leveling type of situation because you said, well, the player's kind of decent. This is different than you betting. Put it this way. This is way different than you betting here, say like 200-300, hijack calling, and then the button raising. That's actually a difference. I feel much more comfortable bet folding in that spot. The thing that I'm thinking about here is we'll have to look at the suits again is that if the button is sort of hand reading kind of correctly and he just doesn't think that the hijack ever has a flush here, then, and you said because the hijack's a spot, he never really has a bet fold button, then can we find smaller flushes here that the button is raising with? But they would have to be reasonable ones. I mean, the smaller flushes would be that someone would have VPIP would be what, like queen 10 of clubs, right?
Yeah, queen 10, queen 9 of clubs are really the only ones.
But I mean, does queen 9 of clubs really check back though on the flop? And then what other stuff can we even invent? The 8, the 7, and the 6 are out there. The problem with him having some sort of 9 of clubs, X of hand is that it probably gets bet out on the flop a fair amount. The hero has the king and the jack. You lose to 4 or 5. I don't think there's any smaller flushes though. Even though I was saying, like, oh, could he find like a smaller flush, raise here? But there's only one, right? Unless he has he can't even have queen 8 of clubs. Unless he's playing some sort of up and down cards, like queen 5 of clubs, right? Something like that. 10, 4 of clubs, right? It's kind of shitty. Mango Havoc says not folding here. We basically have the second nuts. Mango Havoc, I think we just went through the flushes. What is the flush that this guy is raising? Or do you think that he's raising something else? Because we're losing to any ace X of clubs, and there's a lot of combos of that one that check back the flop. 9, 10 of clubs. Anyway, we know we didn't say that we're used to betting like 9x of clubs, and then 4, 5 of clubs. So I don't know. I mean, even though First of all, King Jack of clubs is not the second nuts, but even if it was the second nut flush, there are sometimes these boards that roll out where it's just very, very hard. And it usually has to do with when you have a Broadway hand, right? Like if you had King 3 of clubs here, it would be a much easier call for you, right? Because then there would be some Jack high flushes, but you have the Jack in your hand. Right, caller?
Yep.
So what did you, and yeah, like I said, like at first I'm like, well, this isn't quite the same as coming out and betting and folding, but if we can't find a queen high flush in here, besides queen 10, and like you said, queen 9, that's only 2 combos. How many ace XX of combos are there out there?
A good amount.
And then, of course, once in a great while, even if it's only like a couple percentage points, the hijack might actually show up with the nut flush here, too. It is a multi-way pot. You know?
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd much rather call if I was just heads up here, especially with the fact that I don't think this button is turning something into a bluff, knowing the hijack's just not going to fold anything.
Is the button capable of ever doing this without a flush? Tom's Fold 5, our Discord manager, says, and that is an interesting one here too, but again, the hand that you would do that with that wouldn't be a flush would be Jack 10, right? Which would be the nut straight. You would have had to have flatted with that, which is possible. And then sort of just hope that nobody has a flush. I don't know if that ever crossed your mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 flush draws in the turn. I think he's just pure
You just don't think he's like flatting all that much here?
No.
Yeah. So what'd you end up doing?
I just closed my eyes and put my hand in the muck.
Hero fold. Did you get a result?
And the hijack jams for like
Oh my God.
200 more.
Oh, that's, I mean, jams. Wow. Okay.
Button snap calls, and hijack turns over Jack 10 offsuit like it's the nuts.
Yeah.
And button has ace 3 of clubs.
Oh, nice. Well, funny enough, you saved yourself some money by not betting at the end. But you can follow me why you think why I think it's a much easier bet fold if you had just come out and bet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, obviously, the jam back with Jack 10 is terrible. But it's an interesting one because you hold the king and the jack and the way that the suits are distributed and the fact that 10-9 of clubs is a straight flush, you don't actually beat that much. Like, I don't know if we can find a flush here besides queen 10 of clubs that you're beating. So when you see all that ace X of clubs stuff, it's like, you made a nice fold there. Devin.
Thanks, Bart.
All right. Thanks for the call, Devin.